Part 12. He was a drifting, silent man, full of hidden passion, and loved wild islands, because there, set out in the light of day, he saw what lay hidden in himself. There is passage after passage in which he dwells upon some moment of excitement. He describes the shipping of pigs at Kilronan on the North Island for the English market. When the steamer was getting near, the whole drove was moved down upon the slip, and the carrachs were carried out close to the sea. Then each beast was caught in its turn and thrown on its side, while its legs were hitched together in a single knot, with a tag of rope remaining, by which it could be carried. Probably the pain inflicted was not great, yet the animals shut their eyes and shrieked with almost human intonations, till the suggestion of the noise became so intense that the men and women who were merely looking on grew wild with excitement, and the pigs waiting their turn foamed at the mouth and tore each other with their teeth. After a while there was a pause. The whole slip was covered with a mass of sobbing animals, with here and there a terrified woman crouching among the bodies and patting some special favourite to keep it quiet while the carrachs were being launched. Then the screaming began again while the pigs were carried out and laid in their places, with a waistcoat tied round their feet to keep them from damaging the canvas. They seemed to know where they were going, and looked up at me over the gunwale with an ignoble desperation that made me shudder to think that I had eaten this whimpering flesh. When the last carrach went out, I was left on the slip with a band of women and children, and one old Boer who sat looking out over the sea. The women were overexcited, and when I tried to talk to them, they crowded round me and began jeering and shrieking at me because I am not married. A dozen screamed at a time, and so rapidly that I could not understand all they were saying, yet I was able to make out that they were taking advantage of the absence of their husbands to give me the full volume of their contempt. Some little boys who were listening threw themselves down, writhing with laughter among the seaweed, and the young girls grew red and embarrassed and stared down in the surf. The book is full of such scenes. Now it is a crowd going by train to the Parnell celebration. Now it is a woman cursing her son who made himself a spy for the police. Now it is an old woman keening at a funeral. Kindred to his delight in the harsh grey stones is the hardship of the life there, in the wind and in the mist. There is always delight in every moment of excitement, whether it is but the hysterical excitement of the women over the pigs, or some primary passion. Once indeed, the hidden passion, instead of finding expression by its choice among the passions of others, shows itself in the most direct way of all, that of dream. Last night, he writes, at Inishmaan, after walking in a dream among buildings with strangely intense light on them, I heard a faint rhythm of music beginning far away on some stringed instrument. It came closer to me, gradually increasing in quickness and volume with an irresistibly definite progression. When it was quite near, the sound began to move in my nerves and blood, to urge me to dance with them. I knew that if I yielded, I would be carried away in some moment of terrible agony, so I struggled to remain quiet, holding my knees together with my hands. The music increased continually, sounding like the strings of harps tuned to a forgotten scale, and having a resonance as searching as the strings of the cello. Then the luring excitement became more profound than my will, and my limbs moved in spite of me. In a moment I was swept away in a whirlwind of notes. My breath and my thoughts and every impulse of my body became a form of the dance, till I could not distinguish between the instrument or the rhythm and my own person or consciousness. For a while it seemed an excitement that was filled with joy. Then it grew into an ecstasy where all existence was lost in the vortex of movement. I could not think that there had been a life beyond the whirling of the dance. Then, with a shock, the ecstasy turned to agony and rage. I struggled to free myself, but seemed only to increase the passion of the steps I had moved to. When I shrieked, I could only echo the notes of the rhythm. At last, with a movement of uncontrollable frenzy, I broke back to consciousness and awoke. I dragged myself trembling to the window of the cottage and looked out. The moon was glittering across the bay, and there was no sound anywhere on the island.